So now we're going to have a brief conversation with three shining examples of how far the progressive movement has gone over the last decade. You know, three young, inspirational, progressive, effective leaders here in the state of Pennsylvania. We're going to start to my immediate right. We're going to do some quick intros. We're going to start off with State Representative Sara Innamoratto.
Hi. How are folks doing today? That's good. We're taking you from here, we're bringing you down here. We're gonna have a little fireside chat. My name's Sara Innamoratto, I'm state representative. I represent the city of Pittsburgh and Northern Allegheny County. I was elected in 2018, actually with my sister rep, Summer Lee, which you'll hear from in just a little bit. Yeah, that's me.
So give a round of applause. And also to my right, we are joined by first-term state senator Lindsey Williams.
Lindsey.
Hi, everyone. So I represent the 38th Senate District, which is a little bit of the city of Pittsburgh, the North Hills, and the Allegheny Valley. I won in 2018 by 793 votes out of 120,000, 0.5%, and I flipped a red to blue seat. And so we got some work to do.
And to my furthest right is my good brother from the city of Philadelphia, State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, who also was a candidate for the United States Senate this spring. Welcome to Pittsburgh, brother.
I'm happy to be back. See, it was so Pittsburgh heavy, I had to come and, add some geographical diversity. That's right, okay, there you go. I'm excited as hell to be here. As was said, I'm State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. When I was elected to the State House, I was only the second openly gay person ever elected to the General Assembly, the first openly gay person of color. And when I ran for the U.S. Senate, became the first openly LGBTQ man of color to run for U.S. Senate in American history. It's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of time here, so we're going to jump right into it. You know, we were talking in the days before this, and backstage about what we wanted to really hit on. And one of the things I really wanted to hit on as moderators, the opportunity that lies ahead. We had a ton of victories in the past couple cycles here in Pittsburgh, also in Philadelphia, and even in other parts of the state that we need to lift up more. But my first question to the panel is, at the 2030 net roots, hopefully it'll be back in Pittsburgh, but wherever the 2030 net roots is, what should we be looking back on as far as the opportunities that we took advantage of in this political moment that we're in 2022? And we'll start on my far right with Representative Kenyatta and work our way back.
So in 2030, what's going to be really exciting is there's some people who are sitting out here right now who are going to be up here on this stage talking about the transformational victories that they've had in their communities as well, because a lot of people are going to leave here fired up, understanding the power that you have, and take that back to their communities. I've said this repeatedly as I've been going around the Commonwealth campaigning for folks up and down the ballot. We ought to have a lot of excitement and joy about this moment and this movement. I know you can turn on your phone. By the time we leave here, the former guy done something else crazy that we'll all be looking down to see. But the reality is, the future that we are fighting for and the future that we are building, the future that we are winning is something that we ought to be excited about. I think it is one, we have a story, we have a message that we can go anywhere in this Commonwealth and talk about with a level of urgency, a level of authenticity, and a level of excitement, because our ideas are the ideas that, first of all, resonate with the majority of the American people, and are ideas that are going to change our communities in the ways that we know they need to be changed.
I think in 2030, we're going to see some of the students that have been coming to our offices, talking to us, that we've talked to in their schools. We're going to see them in leadership positions because they are amazing. Every time I talk to students, they are asking me tough questions on issues that we care about: housing justice, environmental justice, racial justice, LGBTQ rights. They are leading the movement, and I want to see us have more. And I also, we've, since being there, have changed the conversation within our own caucuses about pushing our leadership. Why aren't you talking about this? What are you doing in this space? And so I want to see more of us up on this stage pushing the conversation forward in 2030.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Senator Williams brought up a good point where she won, how many votes did you win by?
793.
In 2018. And so we just heard from all the good work that One Hood's doing and all the grassroots organizing that's happening and the voter turnout that is happening when you actually work on expanding the electorate and not just knocking on the doors of the people who already go out and vote. And in 2018, when we ran, we knocked tens of thousands of doors, and we actually tripled expected voter turnout. Tripled. That's pretty freaking cool. That shows the power of grassroots organizing. And we have only seen voter turnout increase since then, and that's here in Allegheny County. So we're gonna keep knocking on doors. We're gonna keep inviting people to participate in democracy. And when we do that, we're gonna be able to actually take the majority in Harrisburg, and we're gonna stop playing defense and stop having to deal with like abortion bans that are trying to get passed in the middle of the night, and we're gonna be put on the offense, and we can actually introduce legislation that's gonna get us environmental, racial, economic, labor justice. That's where we're gonna be in 2030.
That's right.
I don't want to take the opportunity since I have, 3 legislators, that are in Harrisburg, and we all, watch MSNBC or CNN, or maybe some of y'all even watch Fox. I don't know, but whatever y'all watch, y'all, we see what's going on in state capitals all over the country, in all of the chaos, and when we see we have a candidate, running for governor that really embodies a lot of that chaos and craziness. So as folks who are in those chambers in Harrisburg, since we're not there, we see stuff on the news. Is it really as crazy as it looks on MSNBC? Like, what is it really like behind closed doors in Harrisburg? And what is at stake in this November election?
I mean, yes. Yeah, it is wild. I always say, the number of bills that were sponsored by Democratic women that passed last session? The answer is 0. Mm-hmm. So if you are a Democratic woman in the General Assembly in Harrisburg, there is a 0% chance that a bill that you introduce is going to pass. And even be considered. So that's what we're working with, and that's what we're up against in Harrisburg. There's just not the dialogue, there's not the debate that you would associate with good governance. Yeah. We're not even governing, we're just playing defense constantly. So there is a lot at stake if we don't actually turn out the vote and, elect Josh Shapiro for governor.
It's just not good policy, like you said. And, I'm the minority chair of the Senate Education Committee. We've spent our time voting on 4 or 5 different school privatization bills, massive voucher expansions, things that are destabilizing and defunding our public schools, and then they'll turn around and say, oh, we care about making sure every kid gets a quality education. No, you don't. No, you don't. If those are the bills you're pushing and you're voting for, that's your priority. Your priority is making money off of students instead of educating students and making sure that every kid has a quality education.
And I think both my colleagues are abundantly correct. And I think what's important for people to understand is that Republicans have been in control of the Pennsylvania state legislature for 30 years, save for 30 years. And so a lot of the conversation right now in Pennsylvania, I think, is really inverted. We spend a lot of time talking about Doug Mastriano, as crazy as he is, talking about the Crudité, New Jersey guy, as crazy as he is. But here's the reality. You have not seen Lindsey's opponent. You haven't seen a Republican candidate who is running for state house, who's running for state senate, say, I reject Doug Mastriano.
No.
You've not seen it. These people are just as radical and out of touch as Doug is. These people will support Doug Mastriano if he becomes governor in his pursuit of banning all abortion in Pennsylvania, even in cases of rape and incest. They will be a vote for that. Lindsey talked about them being a vote for privatizing our schools, radically expanding vouchers. Sara and I both know that they do not care about protecting clean air, clean water. They will be a vote for this agenda. And so I'm telling you, when you go back to your communities, it's not good enough for Josh to win. It's not good enough for John Fetterman to win. If you have a couple extra bucks, you have a couple extra hours of your time, find a state senate, a state house candidate that you care about, that's in your neighborhood, and get to work.
My next question, I wanted to focus on, in particular, there's a current movement, for those who've been paying attention, there's a current movement in the legislature to try to work around the executive office and use constitutional amendments. And since we got a little bit of time left, us at One Hood and One Hood Power, we like to do a little civic education as well, when we're doing our activism. Can we just give a quick primer on why it's so important to be engaged in the process and how folks are within the legislature are trying to use constitutional amendments as a way to work around legislation and the governor's office? I guess we'll start with whoever wants to jump in.
You want to do it?
So,
I saw it first.
Please.
yeah. We've seen that in terms of response to COVID-19, but most recently, we were in budget, the end of June, and instead of working on issues to get people housing or get them money to help pay with rising costs, what were we doing? We were passing a late-night abortion ban, a constitutional amendment. They waived the rules, the Senate rules, and started at 10:30 at night, passed it out of committee in the Senate, and then ran it on the floor the next morning, sent it to the House, and the House voted on Friday night at 11 o'clock at night. That was 2 days. There was no debate, there was no nothing. It banned abortion, it limited the governor's ability to issue regulations, most recently been used in the environmental context. It is a voter ID and sham election audits, all in one late night constitutional amendment, because they can't work across the aisle on issues that matter. So they're gonna go around and do a constitutional amendment. And why it's so important to care about state legislature races is that's not something that the governor can veto. That passes this session, passes next session, it goes on the ballot. And then we have to spend millions of dollars, millions of hours knocking on doors, explaining to people what this poorly worded constitutional amendment means and why it's taking away their rights. So it is calculated effort to misinform voters about what is happening and put vulnerable populations on the ballot box.
Anybody else want to jump in?
No, that's exactly right. And I think a lot of people focused, rightfully so, on them trying to strip away the freedom to choose in that amendment. But the senator also touched on, do you want Doug Mastriano in charge of deciding unilaterally what regulations we have to protect our air and water? I don't think he's a guy who we can trust with that. There's also a guy that most people in this room have never heard of. He is quiet but deadly. He is our Auditor General. His name is Tim DeFore. He is an election denier who came before my committee and said he doesn't know if the election that happened in 2020 was free and fair. He doesn't know. And they want to put this profile and courage in charge of telling us whether or not the elections we have were free and fair moving forward. That is a recipe for disaster. And the same organization, the Commonwealth Foundation, who is funding the move to privatize our schools, gave this guy $1.5 million to become our Auditor General, and they want to put him in charge of saying whether our elections were free or fair. And so the more you dig into this constitutional amendment, the more rotten you see it is to its very core.
Thank you. Sara, did you want to weigh in at all?
I think my colleagues covered it.
My next thing I wanted to talk about, we have about 5 minutes left, is voting rights. From my vantage point, it seems that, obviously with the election denying and all the anti-democratic activity that over the past 6 to 12 months, voting rights is now also in the crosshairs. Because you could, I guess starting with Sara, could you talk a little bit about, how perilous the situation is right now for free and fair elections and voting rights here in the state of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, and I'm really looking forward to what Malcolm says too, because he served on our committee that actually sees all of these insane laws. So yeah, I mean, being in the minority, we are just totally just pummeled with legislation that aims to create barriers to actually voting. And I mean, right now, like, we have vote by mail, no excuse vote by mail. It was a Republican-led, Republican-sponsored bill that passed our General Assembly and was signed into law. It's what enabled us to have vote by mail this last election cycle. Once they saw that their guy lost, they said, oh, this is broken, everything's unfair, the election was stolen, let's get rid of vote by mail. And it's a Republican-led bill, it was a Republican-led initiative, and that just shows that they actually don't care about governance, they don't care about protecting or preserving our democracy, they don't care about expanding the electorate and making sure every citizen has their voice heard. They're just out for power, and we're not gonna let it happen.
So in our last couple of minutes, we started in the future and then we kind of got deep and heavy with some really tough topics. So in our last few minutes, started with Malcolm, then Lindsey, and Sara. Tell us one thing that you're hopeful about this year politically, so we can leave with, so we can leave a little bit hyped up. I don't want to just throw all the heavy stuff on you and then walk away.
I am excited as hell. I really, really am, particularly when you get to spend time, and I am very young to everybody but my goddaughter, she tells me I'm old, but I'm pretty young. But even the folks who are a little bit younger than me, the activism, the engagement, if you think about just some of the things that got into the Inflation Reduction Act, the historic investment in climate, it wasn't everything we wanted around dealing with gun violence, but the fact that anything got done for the first time in 30 years on gun violence, these are the main demands of my generation and the generation that are following us. We are literally shifting not just the Overton window, but shifting the balance of power, shifting the conversation, and demanding outcomes that extend our life on this planet, that make our communities safer places, healthier places to live and be. And so when I get to see young people, I know that our future is bright as hell, and we're gonna be just all right because the kids are all right.
I 100% agree. That's my hope. That's my hope every day when I see them. And they've already made a change. Like, students, every time I talk to them, they want to see more mental health supports in schools. They want that. They've asked for that. And elected officials play a lot of lip service about doing that. In this past budget, we finally got like some money, some actual money to hire more school-based mental health professionals like that our kids desperately need. And so them pushing is what is pushing them to actually rather get out of just talking about it and spend some real money to help our kids. And I'm really looking forward to what else they can do with our help.
And I'll build on what Senator Lindsey Williams said, is in this last budget, we were able to get $125 million for whole home repairs and hundreds of millions of dollars for affordable housing. And we built a coalition that went from Erie to Pittsburgh, Allentown, Lancaster, Philly, and we worked with Senator Savall to pass this bill. And it was only because we had built a big and broad grassroots, community-centric group that were fighting for the same thing that we were able to get that in the budget this last time. And I'm like, look at what we achieved. We're only getting started. And no offense to my colleague out in Philly, Councilperson Gim, if he said, keep watching Philly. Don't sleep on Pittsburgh, everyone.
No.
Like, we elected our first black mayor. We're sending the first black congresswoman, Summer Lee, to Congress this year from Western PA. And 2023, we're expecting big things. So, keep your eyes on Pittsburgh too.
But this is like the Steagles, right? We need to bring it back together, man.
Yeah, for those sports historians who know about the Pennsylvania Steagles, yes. And I'm not, going to put you on blast, Sara, but they're, maybe 2023 some announcements coming at some point, but we'll leave it at that as time expires. Could we give a round of applause to State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, State Senator Lindsey Williams, and State Representative Sara Immorado.